And we're on. Sir, thank you for coming. I'm super excited about this one.
Thank you for having me, and it's always a pleasure, and it's always exciting for me to be able to talk to someone. I put it down in words in a book, but it's this is just the other part of it, and this is an important part of telling the story also. So I appreciate you.
How do you pronounce your name? I don't want to butcher the whole thing.
Emad.
Emad?
Yes.
How do you say your last name?
Okay, that's actually one name on the book.
Oh,
it's
okay.
Emad U Deen, which means Emad means pillar, like the pillars that hold the building. And U brings into the second part. Deen means religion, so pillar of religion. It's an Arabic name. Emad U Deen, Salah U Deen.
Yeah.
Like that. Pillar of religion. That's what it means. Yeah.
Awesome, bro. So before we get to the book, I want everybody to hear your story from point A, which is when you were born, to sitting here right now and telling us about the book and everything.
I'll give you a summary because I don't want to tell the book.
But
I'll give you a summary of it. I was born in Jerusalem in 1966 in a small neighborhood called Sheikh Jarrah, which is right outside the old city where people know Jesus, the wall, the streets.
Right.
I was born in 1966. In 1967, the newly created state of Israel invaded our country, which we didn't have a military. We were ruled by the British and took the rest of the country over, which is known as the 6-Day War. So I was born in a country that was occupied, had freedom only the first year, 66, 67. We lost the country. I grew up in a poor household in that neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah in Jerusalem, to a father who was a member of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and also was my uncle.
So you were born in Palestine?
In Palestine. Jerusalem. It was called Palestine. It's always been, that's a thing for debate.
Yeah.
It's actually very simple, but it's very difficult for people who've been indoctrinated to believe that it was other than Palestine.
Right.
But that's a political issue. So I was born there. I was raised there. I lived there till I was 12 years old. Migrated to the United States in 1978 at the age of 12. Lived in the Marquette Park area, which was a different area at the time, very racist. Blacks were not allowed past Western. And you could imagine a kid come into that type of neighborhood that didn't speak English. So it was on and popping from there. It was fights every single day almost in that grammar school, which was Marquette School at the time. It still is called Marquette School. It was constantly fighting with people who were racist, camel jockey, sand nigger. I had no idea what they were calling me at first till I figured out what they were saying. But that whole year was based off of fights. It was beatings at home and fights. Well, the first year wasn't so much beatings from my dad, but it progressed. It just built up from there. But it meant mainly fighting those white kids, and both girls and guys, they jump.
Oh wow!
So that's basically it.
So going back in the book, do you talk about like Palestine and all that growing up there?
I do. Like the first chapter of the book is called Jerusalem. It talks about life, living, what life was like. I mean, it was rough. It was rough. We were poor, small house. By the time my father left in 73, it was 6 kids in the house. He left, my mom was still pregnant. 6 kids in a small 1-bedroom house.
Right.
No bathroom, no indoor bathroom. We used the bathroom outside. No bathtub. Just electricity. No running water or anything like that. But we lived clean. My mother was a clean woman, very proud woman. I worked to help my mom in a bakery in the summer. So it discusses all of that in the first chapter. Everything that we went through is in there. Basically.
How was it? So if I go too much into the book or the questions, just let me know.
No, you're fine.
So like growing up over there. So I've never really gotten to speak to someone that grew up in occupied Palestine or wherever, without getting
Israel.
Israel,
Just say, we could say that so people understand.
Yeah. So like back then or even now, like what would happen would Israelis come in and like raid your guys' houses and always like
just constant. If they suspected in any way you were involved, for one, the Palestinian flag was outlawed. So if you even uttered the word Palestine, you went to jail.
Yeah.
If you displayed the Palestinian flag, you went to jail.
Right.
If you had a conversation about Palestine and someone overheard and told them your house would be raided that night, someone was going to jail. So my father was constantly in and out of jail. There would be demonstrations in the street for freedom, let us be free, because under occupation is a difficult thing.
Yeah.
It's basically you're a prisoner in your own country.
Right.
You can't be a part of the military. You wouldn't be, because you'd be a traitor.
Yeah.
You can't have a gun. You can't vote. You can't any of that stuff. So you're basically a prisoner in your own land.
And you guys had a flag, right? Before
we did.
You guys, so it wasn't like overnight. You guys got
we
occupied, and then we have a flag now.
Well, they told a big bold lie for years that Palestine did not exist. Golda Meir, who was the prime minister, back then, and even before my time, Golda Meir said it was a barren land, a land without a people, and they were a people without a land. So they took the land without the people, without a people.
Yeah.
Which is a big, bold lie. If you look, on my Facebook account.
I'm good, bro. I'm just checking my mic.
On my Facebook account, you'll find a lot of documentation, currency, pictures of Palestine before the Zionists came to occupy our land.
Yeah.
So it was that kind of thing. They walk around with machine guns all day long. You have to cringe. They stop you, check your IDs. They could do whatever you want. Whatever they wanted to you. Yeah. Constant imprisonment. You're not, if you're a Palestinian living there then and now, you're going to jail. You're going to spend time in jail simply because you're Palestinian.
Right.
Yeah. Kind of like South Africa, how apartheid, Nelson Mandela, and so on.
Yeah.
Where even Nelson Mandela mentions, if I stumble a little bit because I'm fasting, Nelson Mandela said the situation in Palestine next to makes the situation in South Africa look almost like if it was paradise in South Africa, which was horrible in South Africa, but he means that's how bad it was. That's after he got out. Yeah. He was always a great supporter of the Palestinian cause because it was his cause, their cause.
How hard was it to migrate from there to the United States at that time?
You know what? One thing about the Palestinians, and I talk about it in the back of my book, I always wondered how come it was so easy for Palestinians to migrate. It took us a couple of years when they filled out for the visa and everything, but it's never a problem for a Palestinian to be able to leave Palestine, whether going to Europe or to the United States. And I never thought about it till years later. Yeah. It's a way of helping the Israelis who basically, the Zionists, I should say, who basically run like this country and other countries. Right. It's a way of helping them to ethnic cleanse Palestine. Right. We'll take these out of here, and as they push us out, Russians come in. Right. Russian Jews, Polish Jews, German Jews. Yeah. So like in 1982, we left in 78. In 1982, they took our house as being abandoned. Yeah. Yet we have family there. It's just a house. It's like here, you close your house and you go somewhere else. That's still your house. Right. But that's just an excuse. And who's going to tell them otherwise? They're the rulers. Yeah. So it wasn't difficult to come to this country because, like I said, they helped them. They helped them by taking us. And to us, it looks like, oh, they're doing us a favor. In reality, they're doing them a favor. Right. Because they take us and they get Palestinians out. So the population goes, for the Palestinians, get low and their numbers go up. Right. And so to answer your question, not hard at all. Interesting. Yeah. So when you moved here, how was the weather over there? So the weather over there is... the weather is beautiful. People mistake it and think that it's like desert and bare. Jerusalem is actually...
really nice beaches, right?
Oh, yeah. The one state I could equate it to is California. Yeah. You know how California, the south gets deserty and hotter, and then it gets green and mountainy up towards the north. Yeah. So it has all, it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful weather. California, identical to California. If you ever been there, I've never. I have been there, but it's identical. The South is dry and hot. Then as you go up north, it gets greener and mountainy. I mean, the northern part where it connects to Lebanon, you could ski and go down to the Mediterranean and swim in the water.
Oh, wow.
That's how nice it is. It's a beautiful country.
Oh, wow. So you get here when you're 12 years old. You don't speak any English.
No.
Was it you and your mom or your dad? Or?
My mom was still back home with my 3 sisters.
Okay.
It was me and my 2 brothers.
Okay.
I'm the oldest, and my dad.
And then, so you it was Marquette Park or McKinley? Marquette Park.
We lived on 66th and Western.
Okay.
The 65, the end of 65 and Western 65th. Then, right before my sisters came, we moved right around the corner to 66th and Artesian.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was predominantly Italians back then?
No, predominantly white. Some Hispanics. And the rest was all white, Lithuanians, but not fresh Lithuanians, maybe second, third generation Lithuanians, and some probably whites who've been here a little longer. But it was very racist, very racist. I mean, they'd put stickers on there with SWAT stickers and white power, and blacks didn't dare cross Western Avenue. It was a different place
back then.
Oh, it was horrible. Man. I'm telling you, it was. But to me, coming from Jerusalem, it was a norm. It wasn't nothing, because I'm dealing with these Europeans in my country who were racist against us. I mean, killing us, machine gunning people down in the streets. My cousin, my mom's cousin, second, third cousin to me, was shot like 35 times. In the old city. So it wasn't, oppression was already, we already knew. I dealt with oppression. Right. I watched my mother and my father deal with oppression, my cousins, my whole my race in general. Yeah. So coming here was kind of like, are you serious? I'm gonna come here all the way across the world, and I'm gonna have to deal with this nonsense. So it was.
When they told you were coming here, did you think? What did you think in your head was it was gonna be?
I thought I had heard. Yeah. The streets were paved with gold. I literally thought the streets were paved with gold. Yeah. And it was just a metaphor, metaphorically speaking, it was just like there's so much opportunity. Right. That the streets are paved with gold. Well, to me as a child, I thought they were actually paved with gold. You know? So when I came, I thought it was gonna be, I was gonna see gold in the streets, you know? Yeah.
And when you got here, had you ever experienced the winter also, or
no? Well, it does snow in Jerusalem. I mean, one year it snowed probably about a foot, but it doesn't last long. Right. It melts. So not this kind of winter. No. Yeah. No.
So they so what after? So you lived with your parents. You were getting into fights. Well, you weren't getting into fights. You were defending yourself.
I was defending myself. Yeah. I was defending my brothers. I was defending my honor. I was defending my nationality. I was defending my language. I was defending everything that, my whole existence.
And were you guys the only Palestinians in the neighborhood?
No. There was about 4 or 5 Palestinians, and they were being brutally, and they were like from here. Yeah. And they accepted the treatment. They accepted the horrible treatment. I looked at them and said, "What's wrong with you?" They wouldn't fight back. Yeah. They wouldn't fight back. Right. I had to fight. I couldn't do it. I came fighting, but I wasn't gonna accept all that stuff. And they were accepting it, and they were spitting on them, slapping them around, beating them up. There was a kid I talk about in there who I despised, the Palestinian kid who I despised. Yeah. He would just get slapped, and I still to this day remember his face. I mean, what are you smiling about? They're beating you. They're humiliating you. And he would, the image of him in my head is his face with a smile, glasses, and constantly running. Right. While they were chasing him. Yeah. But I wasn't going to accept any of that. Right. I wasn't accepting it. And I fought every bit of the way. And I didn't care. It didn't matter to me. I just came from being oppressed down there. Right. You, in this free society, you don't have M16s pointed at me. And I'm gonna accept this? No.
How did it feel to be able to at least fight back?
Oh, it felt great. Yeah. It felt great. It for grade. I had black eyes, they had black eyes. I had fat lips, they had fat lips. I had busted knuckles, they had busted knuckles. So whatever they inflicted on me, I inflicted on them. And I try to inflict more on them than they would inflict on me. But by the end of the year, they respected me. They didn't want nothing to do with me.
Right.
Nothing at all.
And that kid, the one that you say that they would spit on and beat up and all the time. Did he grow up also over there, or he grew up here?
He was born and raised here in this society. He was born and raised here in this society. And I hated that kid more than I hated them.
Yeah. And was it just because of that? Because he would let them treat him the way they treated?
Yeah. What was the purpose?
Right.
What are you scared of?
Right.
What are you scared? What was it that you feared from them? They weren't gonna kill you.
Yeah.
And if they did, at least you would die with honor. And these were spoiled white kids.
Right.
They're not gonna kill you.
Yeah.
But he didn't understand that because he didn't come from where I came from. He was, born and raised here.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a lot of fear in him, and he thought it was a joke how fast he could run. And they could never catch him because he was a fast runner.
Yeah.
But it was so humiliating and so embarrassing that this guy was a Palestinian, and I never said 2 words to this guy. Remember, I was in like 5th grade. He was in 8th grade. It was his last year being there. He was going to graduate.
Yeah.
So, and I was fighting people from almost like his class.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? And I almost wanted to beat him up. Also jump in on their side and start beating him up.
Yeah.
It was so disgusting. You know what I mean?
So where did you go to grade school or high school and all that?
That was my first school, Marquette School. Then from Marquette School, we moved to the back of the yards.
Okay.
I went to Seward School.
Okay.
And that neighborhood, the Hispanic community, is a different community in them areas. They're loving, they're caring, they're accepting. They never made me feel that my name was different. They were welcoming.
Yeah.
Their doors were open to their houses. This is why I am so close to the Mexican community. Because I have a lot of love for them. That's my people.
Yeah.
That's my people. I haven't been around my people. Of course, those are my people back home.
Right.
But here I was, I moved to the back of the yards. I went to Seward School. The experience I had in Marquette Park was the racism.
Mm-hmm.
Think 20 block difference.
Yeah.
20 block difference going north and about 6, 7 blocks, 10 blocks going east.
Yeah.
It was a different world.
Right.
A world of no racism.
Right.
Acceptance, love, friendship, brotherhood. And that was my experience there at the back of the yards when I moved there.
What did you when you moved there, like how did were you worried that it was gonna be like Marquette or?
There was always that fear, you know what I mean?
Right.
Now I gotta make my bones. We had already made my bones in Marquette Park,
right?
Marquette School,
right?
But I said, "Damn, I'm gonna make my bones." But I was ready for it. I said, "I have to make my bones. I have to make my bones." And you did have to make your bones, but it wasn't out of racism,
right? You
had to make your bones here and there, but it wasn't out of racism where they told you, "Oh, you camel jockey," or nothing like that,
right?
So those were memorable childhood memories that I had there. Unfortunately, the situation at home was a bit horrible. So it was good in the street, but it was still bad at home.
Yeah.
It was a brutal individual beating up mom, beating up all of us. So that didn't change.
Right. Do you talk about that in the book with your dad?
All of it. I don't hold. The only things I hold back is things that could get me sent to jail.
Okay.
Being a gang member, there's certain things you could talk about. Most of the stuff I talk about is already out in the open.
Right.
There's some things I don't talk about, and that's I have to take those to the grave, and that's all there is to it, And but mostly everything I talk about.
When you moved to back of the yards, when was the first time that you were like, all right, cool, like everybody's gonna be cool with me around here? Or what was like your?
It didn't take long.
No.
I mean, it didn't take long. We went right into the school, and you could feel the atmosphere already. The kids were different. They didn't care who you were, what your name was. If it sounded weird, it wasn't a Martinez or it wasn't a Velasquez or a Vasquez, or they didn't care. So I mean, your name was said, and they were fine.
Yeah.
Everything was fine. It was just like they said, Martinez, even though they were saying my last name.
Yeah.
Which was a Middle Eastern last name.
Right.
So it didn't take long. I mean, it was instant. It was instantly where you felt right at home. Plus, we owned a store in the neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
We moved to the neighborhood because my family bought a corner store.
Okay.
And how they bought it was, this guy borrowed them $2,000. This guy borrowed them $3,000. This because we didn't have no money. So, and that's how people help each other. Kind of like the paisas, how they do. They help each other, which is great. So that's the richness of an outside culture.
Right.
People look out for each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we bought a small neighborhood store for $25,000. That's what the store was.
Yeah.
In 1980. And I worked it there, so we had the opportunity to see people come in. And there was a few white people on west of us, which is Honoree and Walcott. It was still white. They showed a little bit of racism, but not. It was more jokingly than anything.
Yeah, yeah.
But when you got Wood, Hermitage, Paulina, and all that was
right.
The predominantly Hispanics.
Yeah.
Chicanos, Paisas, and they were all loving and caring and respectful and made us feel right at home.
Yeah.
And the whites in that neighborhood also, like the hula hands, great people, but they dated Mexicans. Half the kids were half Mexican, half white.
Yeah.
So it didn't take long.
Right.
To see that this was a different place, different people, even though it's 20 block difference,
Yeah. And then once you were there, you went to high school there, or?
No, I went to high school. I went to Kelly High School.
Oh, you went to Kelly.
Time, there was so much going on between me and my father that I hated him.
Yeah.
I hated him. I hated what he did to my mom. I plotted on killing him. I talk about it in the book. I wanted to kill him.
Yeah.
And it's some deep stuff, man. It's really deep stuff. But I went to Kelly High School, and the only time I found freedom, happiness, when I was away from the house. So I acted out.
Yeah.
I started becoming involved in gangs. I started to, write saints on my SDN on my hand and the school locker.
Yeah.
And all kind. I started to hang out with the SDs from 2-4 and 2-1, taking rides, cutting class. I mean, I went to my freshman year. I went to school the whole year, but I only made it to my classes 3 days.
Yeah.
The rest of the time I was out in the streets.
Right.
And I knew the consequences, but I didn't care because that was the only place I was free
when
I got out the house.
Yeah.
So who cares about the consequences? I'm getting beat anyways.
Right.
So I'll take a beating for something that I'm having fun for.
Right, right.
This guy was beating me anyways, so what's the difference?
Yeah. This was in the early 80s?
This was 1981.
1881.
81, 82.
How was Back of the Yards back then? Like in regards to just...
neighborhood.
Yeah.
There was a strong family base. I mean, it had families that been there for years, like the Padilla family, the Padillas, and the Politos, and the Martinez, and it was strong family ties, and people were intermarriage, like I have some of my guys, older saints, who married other older saints families, and and it was a good, strong neighborhood.
Right.
There was a lot of moral, a lot of respect, a lot of dignity. Even though there wasn't a lot of money,
right?
It was a dignified neighborhood at the time. And you had the Saints in there, and you had the Party Boys, and you had the Boys, and those two were two good crews. They weren't bangers; they were just like party crews.
Yeah.
They were loved in the neighborhood. We were hated. You know what I mean? But it was a lot of fist fighting, if anything.
Right.
Not much, not a lot of gun use.
Right.
I talk about in my book where the thing called was humbugging. If you ever heard the term.
I've heard the term.
Okay, humbugging used to get 2-3 carloads, load up with people, drive down to the Latin Souls neighborhood, jump out in humbug.
And just throw
humbug.
down.
Yeah. It was a humbug. Everybody just, you had to be a man. It wasn't no, let's go drive by and pop, 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 pop. Although that did happen, but not as often as it is now.
Right.
Somebody had to initiate something, but it took a lot for that to happen.
Yeah.
It took a lot more than now. Now it's just out of control.
Would you tell guys from the neighborhood like how you grew up in back in Palestine? Or?
Yeah. Some knew, but you know what? It really didn't talk about much. I think that you mention it now.
Yeah.
I think there came a point in my life where I kind of just blocked it out and dealt with what's at hand.
Right.
And blocked out that was going on there.
Yeah.
And kind of try to forget it and try to forget the humiliation of, losing your homeland. And
right.
You look around, everybody has a homeland. Mexico, there is a Mexico.
Yeah.
Poland, there is a Poland.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? Palestinian? There is no Palestine.
Right.
So so you don't have to constantly explain and explain and explain and explain. Explain it to you. Next time I run into a guy, I have to explain it. You get tired.
Right.
So it wasn't ashamed, of course. We're a proud people, like Mexicans are, like anybody else is. But it was just leave things be. It's being dealt with by other people. Mm-hmm. And if a confrontation came about it, then I definitely spoke. You don't know what you're talking about. Palestine's Palestine. Because when I first came and you said you were a Palestinian, back then there wasn't many so-called terrorist organizations. But everybody knew that as soon as you said Palestine, you guys are terrorists.
Yeah.
Because back then you had the PLO, the PFLP, and so on, the fighting in Lebanon and so on with the Palestinian freedom fighters and so on. Yeah. So we were labeled as the original terrorists.
Yeah.
To speak.
So growing up back in the arts, so you grew up. So you joined the Saints, or?
Well, you know what, I being a bad kid, I wasn't doing good in school. Being a bad kid, constantly getting in trouble, constantly in the fighting. The difference between then and now is basically you got in where you fit in. Mm-hmm. So if you choose friends that are saints and they get into it, you're going to help your friend.
Yeah.
If somebody on the other side, against somebody from the other side, whether you like it or not, you just got labeled as one. He's a saint too, because he's helping Richie from the Saints.
Yeah.
We jumped Richie and his boy jumped in. He's a saint too. So basically in my situation, you kind of, because you're a tough guy, back then you had to be tough. Mm-hmm. I mean, gangbangers weren't looking for nobody. It just, you stood out by yourself.
Yeah.
You were a thug. You were a knock around kind of guy.
Yeah.
And that's how it was. I wasn't looking to join no Saints or any gang. It just naturally evolved into that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay. And then so what happened? So did you ever graduate high school or
no? I got approached by some 2-2 boys in D's, even though I was cool with them. I got approached by a guy named Little Sal and I believe it was Tommy Guns from the SDs, and they said, "Look, man, you're with us. Are you with us or are you with them?" And I said, "Wait a minute, bro. I'm a saint, man. I can't. I'm cool with you. We'd be cool, but I can't. I'm not flip flopping, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm one. That's it. I don't. It's an honor thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So then I fell out with them. So they said, okay, it's either us or them. I said, well, it's what I am already, bro.
Yeah.
I can't change that.
Right.
Yeah. So we fell out. So it was a fight on regularly with the SDs and the 2-2 boys at the school, mainly SDs from 2-4 and Rockwell.
Right.
And finally, it got into a big old thing, and I couldn't go back to school. Mm. Plus, I was failing all my classes. I never went to class. It was gang banging. I chased somebody through the hallways with a 2x4. I chased a few SDs.
Oh wow!
So I talk about it in the book, and I never went back. And I actually kind of broke from cop that was in there. Mm-hmm. His name, I remember him, was an old retired cop, Chicago cop named O'Malley.
Yeah. And
he tried to stop me, and I think I might have took a swing at him too with the 2x4, and I left and never came back.
Oh wow!
And that was going into my sophomore year, which I failed my freshman year. My sophomore year, I said we're gonna take a crack at it, try it again, and it all fell apart real quick. And I had good intentions. I was actually gonna try to do right.
Yeah.
But I was so deep involved into the gangs thing that it wasn't gonna happen.
Yeah.
It didn't happen.
So what did you do after you stopped going to school?
I was working the store a little bit and running away from home.
Yeah.
Going to my boys and hanging out with my boys, living with this family, living with with that family, living with this family. You know how it is, man.
Yeah.
You're Mexican, the Chicanos or the Paisas, they're not gonna let you down, bro.
Right.
They're boy, they're not gonna leave you in the street.
Yeah.
They give you a home.
Right.
It's not their business whether your dad could come, like my dad tried to talk to one of my boys, Coach Cheese, and say, hey man, my son, he said, hey, that's my guy. He's don't help him. He was trying to tell him, don't help him. I was only 14 years old. Don't help him. He said, man, I'm not gonna not help him. That's one of my guys, man. I'm gonna help him. If he needs to eat, if he needs to sleep, I'm gonna help him.
Yeah.
And I believe that was with Coach Cheese, and others did the same. Unfortunately, I chose a family. I was doing so much crazy stuff. I chose a family which turned out to be not too good, and that was part of some of my downfall. But all in all, there was a lot of love within the Saints, within the neighborhood, with people.
Mm-hmm. And then, so after that, what did you So how did you end up in jail? Or
I ended up in jail a bunch of different times. I talk about them all in the book, but fighting, trying to run people over with cars, shooting at people, breaking people's jaws.
Oh wow!
At the time, there was no La Raza. It was 48th Street Boys. La Raza was on 18th Street, and it was called La Familia, and there was no La Raza. Things were a lot different, and so it was mainly for things like that: running from the cops, suspended license, ramming the cops. I reversed into a cop car and blew the whole front end after they chased me from Archer to 39th Street.
Yeah,
I had just got shot at.
Oh wow!
I had a carload of. I talk about all of it in the book.
How old were you at that time?
I was like 16 years old.
Oh wow! So
16 years old at that time. Yeah, so I was evolving. I was. It's not a thing of bragging, man, but I was at a little. You see, I'm not a big guy,
right?
And at 15, 16, I was a force to be reckoned with in that neighborhood. I stood my ground. I did things that other guys would not do. And there was a lot of badass dudes back then too. I mean, I'm not the only one. There was dudes that were better than me, but I was a force to be reckoned with, man. I wasn't taking nothing. I don't care if it meant death. I think what was the difference if it was dying or living, anyways?
Yeah.
At that time.
Mm-hmm. So then after that, so let's fast forward to like 18, 19 when you start becoming an adult.
I went to state prison at the age of 18. A guy was shot, skinned his head. I tell the story in there. I got kind of tricked into it by an older saying that this guy was doing this and this guy got some money and blah blah blah. And turned out the guy didn't have nothing. He was a paisa dude. Got sent off. Guy almost got killed. And then the guy that was with me when we separated, while I was looking for him with one of my older guys, a saint named Andy. Turned out he was arrested. While he was arrested, that's the beginning of really knowing people because people hid if they did cocaine back then.
Mm-hmm.
I guess he was already hooked on coke. When the cops came, he got stabbed, or he jumped over the fence and stabbed himself. He went to the hospital. When the cops showed up, he spilled his guts about the situation.
Yeah.
And so I'm cruising around. I call a friend of mine. Remember, no cell phones, all pay phones, 1984.
Yeah.
They say, hey man, the coppers were over here looking for you, detectives.
Yeah.
They're looking for you for armed robbery, home invasion. Who knew other than this guy? So anyway, it turned out this. So I get arrested for it, and I fought the case for some time. And finally, I almost got killed 2-3 times before April. I went to the state in April 18, 1985. And my lawyer was like, let me try to get it down. You just turned 17, blah, blah. I said, no, because I knew I had a feeling I was going to die.
Yeah.
I already had 3 different incidents within 2 months where I almost got killed.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about those,
Yeah.
And I told him, no. The judge was like, you need some time. No, I don't need no time. Take me now. I'm ready to go now. And I went to the state joint. And that's when I learned different things. And we were folks at the time, not on the street, renegade on the street, folks in the joint. And I climbed the ranks, man, to second C for all the Latin folks in Sheridan, Illinois at 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I had a nice position. I explain a lot of that in the book. About I did 2 years, almost 2 years, 21 months. I got 3 months good time, and got out from there.
How was it? So did anybody ever tell you like, hey man, you're not Latino? You're running this?
No, man, no. Because remember, when you're in the state joint and you're talking about folks or people, there's a slew of different nationalities. I mean, you're talking about whites. Simon City Royals on the north side were all white.
Yeah.
Gaylords who are hooked up with the Kings with fin balls, they were all white. Plus you had, that was probably, in my days, now there's Palestinians that are gangbangers. I was probably the first Palestinian who was a gangbanger, or one of the first. No, I shouldn't say the first.
Yeah.
That's overdoing it. But one of the first at the time.
Yeah.
So there wasn't one. Then a year later, a guy showed up from the north side who was Palestinian, but you usually find them on the king side back then because of the 5-point star and stuff. But never. Actually, there was a Puerto Rican maniac disciple who used to always talk to me in Spanish, and I'm like, his name was Puti, and I'm like, Puti, man, I'm not. He said, no, man, you're Puerto Rican, man. I'm telling you, man, you look Puerto Rican. I said, I'm not, bro. I'm Palestinian. Stop talking, man. I'm gonna bring it out of you. You're just playing, you know. But I didn't speak Spanish, although I could have. I've been around the Mexicans for, living in their houses.
Yeah.
But no, I've never had that problem.
No.
Never had that problem. They were like, wow, you're Palestinian? Oh, okay. But that's about the full extent of it.
So when you got out, or what did you do? You went back to the streets, or?
Well, while I was in the joint, remember, as a saint before I went to the joint, we were fighting everybody. Yeah. Everybody was hooked up. Right. Ambrose, you could go to Ambrose neighborhood and find 2-6 there, SDs. They were all, you had the SGD, the people and folks, So you'd find kings and counts in one neighborhood hanging out. It was a different time, different place.
Yeah.
But the only clique on the street that wasn't hooked up was the Saints. We were still renegade while everybody was plugged.
Yeah.
So when I went to the joint, our arch enemies were Latin souls and 2-6 and 2-2 boys, really 2-2 boys. And I met like dudes in the joint I was fighting with on the street or fighting with their boys, and we became like brothers. We're breaking bread and eating. So I was already in that mindset, man. I can't get out and fight these dudes. I will fight anybody on the Finn side, but shoot, we're fighting everybody.
Right.
So I said, man, I can't get out and face this dude out. I broke, but that's phony. You know what I mean? It's just not me. It wouldn't be. But I got out. I still was dipping and dapping with my neighborhood. I'm with my boys lightly, but of course I was still considered the same. I never got out. Yeah. It's not a thing of choice for me. You are one, you'll always be one unless you went out on bad terms, unless you snitched or you burn people or whatever the case may be. I've never done any of that. Right. And so I was still there living in the neighborhood, hanging out, seeing my guys, hanging out with them sometimes, but I was working. I learned a trade when I was in the joint. I became a body man. I did body work. Okay. So I was working and hanging out when I did, and every now and then I might pick up a burner and do something depending on the situation. Mm-hmm. And but other than that, I was living a clean life until the drug game. When I got out, 87, the drug game was heavy. Right. I left a friend who was broke, and I came out. He's driving all kinds of cars. He got all kinds of money. And we used to chip in $5 to get a bag of weed.
Yeah, I got 5 on it, like the song.
Yeah. It was $5 just to get a nickel bag. Oh, then. Okay. But a nickel bag back then was like this. Yeah. So I got out. He was doing good, and I stayed away from it. You know what I mean? I stayed away for some time, and then finally got sucked into it. Yeah.
What was the drug? What was the drug back then? That was
cocaine.
Cocaine.
I never used. Mm-hmm. I smoked weed. Yeah, I'm not a drinker. I don't really like drinking. I didn't like drinking too much. I have a beer. My guys will always say, "Damn, you didn't finish. How long you had that?" Half a beer, an hour. You know what I mean? but I smoked some weed, but never touched the cane or anything else.
And you talk in the book about getting into selling drugs and
all of it.
Yeah.
How I got started, why I got started, how from what amount to what amount I worked my way up to. Man, I was in attics with Paisa dudes from Durango and Michoacan.
Yeah.
In the attics that I'm telling you, you know how long the attics are in our buildings.
Yeah.
Half of the attic full of boxes of shit.
Oh wow.
Cocaine, yeah. I mean, it wasn't mine. I got mine, send it to my guys, they pick up and leave. But I had so much trust.
Yeah.
That hey man, come get what you want from the main connect.
Yeah.
Come get what you want. He didn't even speak good English, but he loved me.
Yeah.
He took a liking to me. Actually, I was getting from one of his guys.
Yeah.
And he stepped in and he introduced himself. It blew me away, but he knew my reputation because it was in a bar in my neighborhood that watched me grow up.
Right.
So it wasn't like he was walking up to some unknown person.
Yeah.
Everybody knew who I was in that neighborhood. So it was at a bar in my neighborhood where he approached me. I was getting it from the guy that owned the bar, and then in reality, that guy was getting it from him.
Right.
So he cut the middleman out and gave me a price nobody was getting in Chicago.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And then it was.
And from there it was gone. I mean, he trusted me so much. He said, "Hey, go see Chino." And I used to go see him. They came in, go get what you want, put it to the side, have you guys come pick it up. That's how much trust.
What was the first thing you bought with the money you made? Like you were like, you remember? Just curiosity.
What? My family was in trouble.
Yeah.
My dad is, and my mom, actually, I had to lie to her. I had been away from home. I hadn't been talking because I always left home because of my dad. I just couldn't deal with him. And my mom I hadn't seen her in a while. And she sent for me, and I went, and she told me, "Oh, what are you doing?" and this and that. And I told her, "I'm good." She said, "People tell me you driving nice cars. What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I buy and sell cars, ma." "Oh, really? You do good on it?" I said, "Yeah." "Oh, I wish you would help your dad." That was the first thing I started doing.
Yeah.
Is helping them for her.
Yeah.
And 100,000 turned into 200,000, turned into 300,000, and so on and so on in increments. Like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 25,000. Like that.
Yeah.
And that's what I actually started looking out for my family. Was some of the first stuff I did.
How old were you at that time, man?
I was. Let me see. Got out 19. About 22 years old.
22 years old.
23 years old. 22 years old, probably.
Do you think? I don't know if you talk about it. Do you think your mom knew, or she just?
Well, she always she suspected, but I would deny. She would say, "Hey, man, make sure you're not doing anything wrong." I said, "No, Mom, I'm telling you." But then again, when I take her with me, I take her to a body shop a city block long. She looks in and it's got Rolls Royces and Porsches and all that. So you could adjust to a woman who doesn't speak any English.
Right.
And say, "Wow, this is a big place. These are Porsches and Ferrari. All this nice stuff.
Yeah.
It's possible. It's doable."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The body shop was a city block long.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
not kidding.
Yeah.
And this was our guy's body shop. But we were in and out of it.
Right.
Cars I drive had DL plates on them, repossessor plates, and so on. And I talk about all that stuff in there.
Yeah. So how old were you when when you got to your peak? You could say in your career with that. How old were you at that time?
About 24. It was fast.
Yeah.
Because see, the thing with it's like anything. It's not what you know, but who you know.
Right.
And if you got the right connect, you're gone.
Yeah.
You're gone. You're off and popping. If you're only able to find someone who will give you a half a key at a time or a key at a time, but when you got a guy telling you take what you want, go take what you want. It's a green light to just run amok.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But even though I still kept my limits, I wouldn't take any more than I wanted, because I didn't want to bring too much heat, and I wasn't bringing any heat on me. Mm-hmm. But I finally wound up getting arrested by the DEA and FBI. Yeah.
Was it somebody that? Well, I don't.
It was somebody that was setting up the guy that owned the body shop, and I happened to walk in. I never talked to this guy. I knew he was a big mouth. He was actually from the north side. I believe once upon a time he was a maniac. But I didn't mess with him because he had a big mouth. But he was setting up the guy on the body shop on a reverse sting.
Yeah.
And I talk about it in there, how he stole the BMW and there was 5 keys in there, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. This guy, the guy that owned the body shop, his dad was big time at one time, but they weren't doing nothing. Why he went for that?
Yeah.
You got me. And anyway, I guess it's the working of God.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's your time. It's your time. And I got popped in February 11, 1992.
Yeah.
With that case right there. No drugs, no tapes on me. No one saying I sold them drugs, nothing. It was a conspiracy.
Oh, they got you on conspiracy?
Conspiracy, yeah.
I have a couple of people that they were literally, yeah, that's a whole nother
ball game, man.
Yeah, the conspiracy thing.
You know how powerful the government is.
Yeah. I have a buddy that, well, I don't want to put his business out there, but he got sent away. And I mean, that's probably one of the nicest, hardworking guys I know. And he would just hang out at the wrong bar, you could say. The wrong place, and they got him on conspiracy, and he went to jail. He went to jail. He had to plead guilty. He went to jail, and yeah, like he told me all these stories of all these other people that were in there. For all that.
Seen crazy stuff. Yeah, man. It was a rude awakening. It was hell on earth. Not doing time, sitting in a building where you were just basically like a target. Yeah. Not only you weren't done with problems. You wound up in downtown and everybody's looking to tell on everybody. Yeah. It was the craziest thing it was a nightmare. It was a night. I seen brothers tell on brothers, sons tell on mothers. Guy says, man, my when a guy baptizes your son.
Godfather. Padrino. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy was my child's padrino, man. 30 years I've known him. He set me up. Things like that.
Yeah.
Tend to do something to you, man.
Right.
Cuban guy walked up to me, old man, said, hey, don't talk to nobody. When I came in, don't talk to nobody. They're all snitches. I said, this guy's nuts. I've been to the joint.
Right.
I know it is, but it was a different.
It was a federal prison this time.
It was a different day, different time. It's amazing how much change had taken place from 87 to 92 with the so-called criminal element. There was no criminal element. It was a social problem. A bunch of people locked up for a social problem.
Right.
Had no criminal element in them whatsoever. They couldn't take it. They told them 20 years they give up their mom and everybody else.
Yeah.
You know.
Did I was gonna say something about that, like without getting political and stuff like that again, but do you think? So this is my thing. I always talk with people when I'm on the podcast and we talk about like segregation and gentrification, all that. My whole thing is I don't think there's racism, like racism that you grew up with, but I feel like now we have more than racism. I think that people don't really talk about or look at is that it's economic racism. You know what I mean?
Of course, 100%.
Where
listen, if it wasn't economic racism, or economical prejudices, okay, because racism is about a race,
right?
Economical prejudices,
right?
Because you're not economically here,
right?
You're being prejudiced against.
Yeah.
If it wasn't that, okay, when you look at Jesse Jackson's son or kids, he's black. But when he goes to the same school the white kids go to.
Right.
That Hispanic, the Arab who have money go to. They go to the same schools, same parties, same dinners. They're not racist against each other.
Right.
It's wide open. But they sit and they talk all that nonsense to rile us up and listen, I'll take care of you. I'll fight for you.
Right.
Okay. Stop being racist against my people. Racist against your people. It's a lot of political stuff going on that they play on the poor people.
You know what? I never thought of it the way you just said it right now, but you're right. It's not. We shouldn't use the word racist because it's not about race.
No, it's not about race. It's prejudices.
Yeah.
Economical prejudices. one group of people has this much money. They get the green light. They get this. I mean, you see it when you go in a restaurant. You know, the guy looks like money. They take care of him, you know, more. The guy, he gets to sit here. He gets to walk in. You can't walk in.
Right.
They find a table for him, although there is no tables, but they don't find one for you.
Yeah.
It's all about economics. It's how much money you have.
Right. I think I told someone economic segregation.
Economic segregation.
That's
an excellent word for it. Exactly.
So you're in federal prison. How many years did you do for that, for the conspiracy?
13 years.
13 years?
I did 13.
Oh wow.
Close to 13. Couple of months shy.
And how did you how was like federal prison? Do you talk about that in the book? Like
I talk about all of it.
Yeah.
I talk all of it all the way up to almost 2015.
Okay.
So the book goes all the way to 2015, 16, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little more. Because it's only been a year since I finished it.
So how old were you then? You were what,
25 when they indicted me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was 15 years that you were?
I was
what?
I was no, they gave me 13 years and something.
Yeah. You're fine.
13. They gave me 160 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't get. I ran into an immigration problem. They were gonna deport me now.
Oh wow.
I wasn't a citizen.
Yeah.
I had a green card, but the laws were a bit different when I came in. The laws were different. They changed them in '94.
Yeah.
These people that talk about Democrats and all this Democratic nonsense.
Yeah.
It was the Democrats that did all that. It was first Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who's convicted, what they did is the crime bill of 1994. They took away everything from federal prisons, education, everything. And the Democrats were a big push in that. Biden, the guy that's running for president right now.
Yeah.
Then in 1996, when Timothy McVeigh blew up the Murrow building,
right,
they put this anti-terrorist bill of 1996 and took away everything, education from the prisons, no more weights, no more this, no more that. And if you are convicted of a crime that you did a year for, even sometimes not even a year, DUIs, a small bag of weed from 1975, they went and picked you up and deported them.
Oh, wow.
Jamaicans, there was people convicted in 1980 for a nickel bag of weed or a quarter bag of weed. They deported them.
Yeah.
People were scared to leave the country if they had a conviction. A singer went to Jamaica and wasn't allowed back into the country. So now I had a problem.
Yeah.
Now these people were going to deport me, but I also knew that they couldn't deport me because I have no country. And I'm a Jerusalemite. I'm not born somewhere else. I've never been outside of Palestine. I came straight to this country. So now the problem was how long they're going to keep me in jail. They were keeping Cubans 10, 15, 13 years after their out dates.
Yeah.
Cubans, Palestinians, Cubans, Vietnamese, Laos, Cambodians.
Right.
Those are people that the United States does not have relations with the government.
Right.
With those governments. So they call it a non-removable alien, that they cannot remove you, so they keep you in jail. The thing came down right before I got out. Luckily, about a year or two before I got out, a case went to the Supreme Court and they said, listen, if you cannot remove them out of this country, you have to release them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they held me. I should have got out. in December 2003, but they held me till May 2004.
Oh, wow.
And I had to sign a paper that they're going to deport me.
Yeah.
So I signed it. They sent a letter to the Israeli consulate, and the Israeli consulate never responds. They don't want us back in. That's why I told you it's easy to get us out.
Yeah.
They don't want us back in.
Right.
Why would they take us? So they don't answer. They don't answer the government. They don't answer the U.S. government.
Yeah.
And the U.S. government can't do nothing to them.
Right.
They don't do nothing to them. You can't say nothing to them. They run this country.
Yeah.
They run this country. And you know, so they have to release me. So they release me. Now I have to wait until there's a Palestine, a Jerusalem, and then they'll send me back, which is doesn't look like it's gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen soon.
Not because, in 100. Yeah. It'll eventually happen. Yeah. But it won't be in my lifetime. Right. So now it's getting worse and worse and worse.
Right.
And I'm going through a thing right now where I'm gonna have to file a lawsuit because now they're making me do my license twice a year.
Your driver's license?
My driver's license because I have to renew my work permit card every year now, which always was, but I could renew my license every 4 years. Now these rocket scientists made it that I have to renew my license every time I renew my work permit. Okay, but the problem is I never get my work permit card on time.
Right.
So they give you a paper with a 180-day reprieve. Yeah. So I go renew my license for 180 days. By that time, the work permit card comes. Right. So now I have to go renew my license again. But by that time, I have to do my work permit application again because it takes 6 months to get it.
Yeah.
So and then if you remember 8-9 months ago or close to a year ago, Trump gave my city of birth to the Israelis as their eternal capital. So he gave my city of birth away. Mm-hmm. So how do you do that? And yet you hold me hostage here like this.
Right.
You give my country away. You give my city away. You give them billions a year.
Right.
To oppress my people. And yet you're telling me here, I'm this bad guy.
Yeah.
You've committed worse crimes than me. Mm-hmm. And I went to prison. And you're telling me that I'm going to have to deal with this? No, I'm not going to deal with this. I will deal with it. But we're going to have to do something in court about this.
Right.
And that's what that's in the process of working on now. And I'll give you the details down the line, but it's a rough situation, man. It's hard.
How did you come about sitting and be like, I'm gonna write a book about all
this? I
never
thought about it. I went to a fundraiser for a nonprofit organization on the South Side, 63rd and Cal, called Emad. Mm-hmm. The guy that started it asked me to go with him, and I went to Ann Arbor, Michigan. I met a surgeon there. Anyway, my friend went to talk to some doctors that were donating money. They're medical doctors. And as my friend was walking away, I was sitting, and he told the Syrian doctor, the surgeon, he says, talk to Emad, you'll find his life interesting. So he looked at me, and he came to me and he said, tell me. He sat down next to me, pulling on me. So I talked to him for about 7-8 minutes, and he grabbed me. He told me, okay, stop. He took me by the hand, took me to my friend, cut him off, and said, hey, this guy needs to write a book about his life. And I looked and thought about it. I said, this guy's crazy or something like that. I mean, what's he talking about? So that was in 2005. From 2005 to the day I started writing it, I mean, I had a guy who's a Chicago outlaw, a biker. Mm-hmm. We talk like I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
And I say, man, you're an interesting guy. You ever thought about writing a book? And it was write a book. And then I went to visit my friend. He's a gangster disciple. Uh-huh. Wrote a book. Not a true story, but, wrote a book. And I went to see him, and I'm sitting down talking to him. I see the book with a picture on it. And I said, you wrote a book? And he said, yeah, man, you need to write a book. You got a good story. And that's when the light came on in my head. And I said, you know what? Yeah, not many people lived like that. It is a good story. And I started to work on it.
Yeah.
That's what, in like 2016, 17, maybe even, I can't remember.
Yeah.
It took me a couple of years, but I left it for like 6, 7, 8 months. I couldn't put too much into it because it brought back a lot of memories. And believe it or not, I had forgotten so much stuff, but it just takes it's like a scroll process, and then you start remembering this. Mm-hmm. And then the problem was I'd remember this, and I'd write it, I jotted down, but it was, damn, that wasn't 83, that was 1982. No, that wasn't in 82, that was in 83, late 83. So it was a little difficult, but I did the best that I could with what I had. And then I was going to have a friend of mine in Philadelphia who has a PhD to edit it. He wanted to do it for me. I sent him the hard copy, and while he was doing it, I told him, forget it, stop. I'm going to send it just the way it is. I want it to be my work. Right. I don't want it to look like a professor wrote it.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And then I took a chance, man. And a friend of mine who's a commercial broker, mm-hmm. wrote it. I met him through a friend. He was texting me every 5. Holy God, man, damn, bro, he said, this is better than Carlito's Way, man. And I was like, I was shocked for a minute.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you know, I was a little scared because I never really went back to read it too much because I was skeptical.
Yeah.
You know? But the thing about it is it didn't take rocket science. It was my life story. I mean, you couldn't, it's what's hard about it. It wasn't like I had to make a plot and all this other thing. Right. I just jotted down my life story. Some things I couldn't talk about, we left those out.
Right.
The rest, was just putting it down, man.
And when you, so let's say like a Carlito's Way or like a Scarface movie, like the gangster movies of the like the 80s, the 90s that like people talk about all the time. And all that. Like when you watch those movies, do you think like, man, that movie's kind of fake? That's not how it really is, or
what? You know what? When I watched Gotti's movie and I read the book, it was two different things.
Yeah,
two different things. Yeah, of course we say, yeah, that's not the way it is. Get out of here. You know, it's till right now I watch certain movies and it's like,
yeah,
crap. That's not the way. But like Carlito's Way wasn't too far off.
Right.
It wasn't too far off. I mean, they weren't saying, you know, it was a pretty decent movie. It
right.
wasn't too far off. But even then, if you think about like my life story, my situation, the stuff that's in there, the things that I evolved into, it's a lot more than they were doing. I mean, we're talking about Palestine, the issue there, the political problem. Then you're talking about that racism coming here. Then you're talking about the gangs.
Yeah.
Then you're talking about the state prison and moving up in the ranks to second C for the Latin folks.
Right.
Even though it was a young prison, small, it wasn't Statesville, but it still was a rough joint. It still was connected with all of that.
Yeah.
Then you're talking about coming out and trying to do good learning body work. Then you're talking about getting involved in the drug trade and moving up from a small amount to these enormous amounts. Then you're talking about being arrested. Then you're talking about Chop Shop, Harley Davidson being, you know, I walked into a place one day and they had a freaking picture of a Harley on the board, said, you know, we're giving
bonus,
a reward for anyone. And I just was on that bike that night
before.
Wow. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, a garage with 10, 15 stolen Harley Davidson. And back then they were hard to not, like now they're plentiful.
Yeah.
Porsches being chopped up, things like that. Then, you know, going to federal prison, then spending long time in segregation because I refused to cooperate with the government.
Right.
Then I mean, it just evolves and evolves. And I, you know, there was some connection with my co-defendants with the mob back in the day in the 70s when they had the big chop shop booms back then. So, you know, that's the thing. So it's a bit different. There's a bunch of different things and that differentiates from other people. So that's why he would say, "Damn, this is better than Carlito's Way."
Yeah. What federal prison were you in when they finally
I was in MCC Chicago. I spent 19 months there fighting my case. I spent almost a year in segregation in the hole. Then I went to Oxford, Wisconsin, FCI Oxford. I hated it. And then I went from Oxford to Pekin when they opened Pekin, Illinois. From Pekin, Illinois, I went on a transit to Terre Haute, Indiana. From Terre Haute, Indiana, I went to Milan, Michigan. From Milan, Michigan, I went to Oakdale, the transfer center in Oklahoma City, and then to Oakdale, Louisiana, which is an immigration place. The last year of my sentence, which was a brutal place.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have been there. Is Aztecs and Texas Syndicate and Mexican Mafia knocking off dudes left and right. They threw me in the midst of all that. So, when you get short, you're supposed to get easy. It got really hard, man.
Yeah.
There's a thing where you had to basically go stash yourself a shank. I made friends with some Aztecs from El Paso, Texas in there. And they were at war with the Sureños in 18th Street and Paisas and Border Brothers, man. It was a rough situation.
Oh, wow.
And and I mean, they did that to all the guys with immigration stuff. But, and that's where I got out from there eventually.
Did you ever, because on the one podcast, who was your cellmate that was a pretty famous mobster? Or what, like you knew and,
you know what? I knew a bunch of them, but Sam Wings Carlisi, I used to cut his hair.
Oh, okay.
Jimmy Marcello was a good friend of mine. My son used to call him uncle in the visiting room. And I mean, a lot of people were friends with them. But I used to cut in the MCC, Sam Wings, Carlisi was a big guy. Harry Alleman was a good friend of him. The mob hitman was a good friend. I mean, a lot of them, a lot of different ones.
Yeah.
It's, and I talk about all that
in
there. Yeah, I talk about all that in there. But they're just ordinary people like everybody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were nice guys. They were nice old guys. You know what I mean?
Right.
They paint them out to be devils and stuff like that, but they did what they did. That's their business. I don't, they hurt who they hurt. They were in a beef with, if that's what they portray. I don't know. They never told me any of their criminal background. I just looked at them as like regular people, like me and you.
Yeah. So, one thing I always ask everybody that comes on the podcast. When you were growing up, what did you want to be? Like, was there a point where you were like, man, I want to be this when I grow up?
Well, I'll tell you what I wanted to be when I was growing up. When I was in Jerusalem, I wanted to be a freedom fighter. I wanted to go to Lebanon and join, whether it be Yasser Arafat's guys or somebody else, to fight the Israelis.
Yeah.
I wanted to be that. Because my family was there. My uncle was there. My uncle was the first Palestinian to do an operation against the state of Israel.
Yeah.
He was sentenced to 125 years. So that's what I wanted. I wanted freedom for my people.
Yeah.
I wanted to be one of those guys. And I talk about in 1982 here, I almost went to Lebanon when they invaded Lebanon, but my mom wouldn't have it. And I was only, 16 years old, 15, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go. One, I wanted to be away from my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I wanted to go. It would have been probably ultimate death, but it is what it is. That's the only thing I could remember what I wanted to be. There wasn't much room in my life to see anything other than that.
Do you think that's why you see a lot of like a lot of young people fighting over there? Like in different parts of the Middle East and Asia and all that?
No.
Do you think
the Middle East, there's a lot of fighting in the Middle East because the Middle East suffers, and North Africa and Africa suffers from post-colonial sickness. Mm-hmm. We've been colonized.
Right.
And when those who colonized us left, but they left us tyrants who did their bidding. So they were gone. They gave us a guy that looks like us, dresses like us, same religion as us, but he actually is one of them.
Right.
And he has weapons. They give him junk weapons, tanks and stuff, but what are they to the regular people? You can't, just to control his people.
Right.
So the oppression is what makes people fight. Kind of like when the kids were taken out and killed in Mexico by the cartel.
Right.
Because they were protesting for free, like anywhere else.
Yeah.
People are tired of being oppressed.
Right.
So they fight. Whether in Iraq, Saddam was he's gone now, so I don't know. He was an oppressor. He worked with these people. Assad, he's still killing his people. And so you also on and so Gaddafi. And Sisi now in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
They kicked out Mubarak, put a good guy, and then of course the forces that be outside said, get rid of this guy, he's not working with our game plan. His own military kicked him out and took over. So the fighting in the Middle East is due to these oppressors who have been put in place by either Europe or the West, somebody else.
Right.
That's what happened. That's why people fight there. People don't want to fight.
Right.
You have kids. You are here. You're living. You're good.
Right.
You went out in the street right now and you picked up a gun to fight the government. People say it's crazy.
Yeah.
You're living like a king.
Right.
Next to those people.
Right.
But those people can't live like that. They're working. They're making $100 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, they're being disrespected. I mean, the whole Arab Spring started out because a police officer in Tunis walked up and slapped a vendor on the street, and the guy took a gallon of gasoline and walked up in front of the municipal building and burned himself. Mm-hmm. And that's how the Arab Spring started.
Yeah.
So it's out of oppression. You can't feed your family. You can't eat. You're being disrespected. You watch these government officials. They're living like kings and they're living like gods. They want you to treat them like a god.
So not to take it to the extreme, but like now in these last couple of months that we've seen, that everybody has to be on lockdown and stuff like that, and you have all these protests now and everything else. Could you ever see? You've lived it. You've lived it over there. I don't think it would get that bad here, or hopefully it would never get that bad here. But could you see something like that happen where people start protesting? Because here we have guns.
Well, I could tell.
Here, you know what I mean? You see these guys, they're already standing in government buildings.
Yes. Not only that, it's recorded down as they've sold. I think they broke the history with how many, the amount of ammunition and guns that were sold. It's an all-time high.
Yeah.
During this period.
Right.
What people don't realize is there's a thin line between stability and instability, where a little thing, I told you, a little thing. People have been dealing with stuff in Tunis for years, oppression.
Yeah.
One guy got slapped and said, "That's it, I'm done." Walked up to in front of the government building, poured gas on himself, burned himself, and the whole region went in smoke.
Right.
From Gaddafi got killed, Mubarak lost, the civil war started in Syria, all from that one incident.
Right.
No place is immune from it.
Yeah.
You said a bunch of people have guns, and they walked into the Capitol buildings with fully armed gear,
right,
dressed like military.
Yeah.
All they had to do was one police officer approach them in a certain way, and they would have kicked something off.
Yeah.
And that little kicking off probably would ignite into a wildfire. That's what people don't understand.
Right.
There's a very thin line between stability and instability, meaning an all-out war.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much. It could be normal one day and it'd be done the next day or the next minute.
Yeah.
It's just one action, one wrong action at a sensitive time.
Right. Going back to the back of the yard. So, do you ever go back, or do you ever? Do you have family there still? Or?
My brother still lives there. When I got out from the feds, I went back there, and it was a sad situation because things had changed so much.
Yeah.
And it was like not the place that I knew that I loved.
Yeah.
And I loved that place. I mean, cameras everywhere, speed bumps everywhere.
Right.
Different people, all the people I knew were gone. Although, there'll be, that's what's his name, this and that's. The ones that knew me, knew me, and the ones, the rest didn't. I was having beefs like mad dogging me. What are you mad dogging me for? I'm here, I'm representing to these guys, like, say no, man, you know why, something like that. I had a couple of incidents like that because they didn't know me, but I felt offended.
Mm-hmm.
I felt offended because I had so much and sacrificed so much, and my guys dead and so on, and these young guys were around, and it's just not saying they're bad, but it's just they didn't understand me. I didn't understand them. It was a different, too much of a gap in between.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
Do you think the problems are like the neighborhoods like that, like Little Village, Back of the Yards, Inglewood?
They've always had problems.
Yeah.
But not these kind of problems.
No.
When the government came in and cleaned house and took all the heads who kept law and order,
mm-hmm.
people ran wild. And when they did that, they showed those people that see, he wasn't shit. He was nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Somebody would never say, F. Larry Hoover. Now was saying F. Larry Hoover.
Mm-hmm.
Lord Gino. Everybody. They just demolished the whole thing. But when they did that, they left a void. And that void, everybody just ran wild.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So, with Nancy Reagan war on drugs, which was a totally different war on drugs than Nixon's war on drugs. Mm-hmm. Nixon's war on drugs was for treatment and rehabilitation and all this stuff. Well, these people, Nancy Reagan, who was the biggest prescription drug user in the world,
mm-hmm.
was lock them up. Stronger crime bills, longer prison sentences, longer, jack it up from 50 or a third of your time to 87% of your time. You get 10 years, you got to do 8 years, 7 months rather than 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they caused a lot of the stuff that you see going on now.
Yeah.
They caused it because they took everybody that was anything out of, there was no role models. Although that type of role model was bad, it still kept law and order within the neighborhoods. A lot of people didn't have a father figure.
Right.
These were father figures. and they took out all morality. There was no, snitching is at all time high. Disrespect is at all time high. When I was growing up, you called a guy a B. It was B. You called a guy a bitch. Mm-hmm. It was do or die.
Yeah.
You come out now. Everybody's calling. Dudes calling each other stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no more respect. There's no more checks and balances, and there's no repercussions.
Right.
Now you could just walk around, disrespect whoever you want, do whatever you want. Now in certain neighborhoods, black neighborhoods, instead of a whole neighborhood being GD, now it's block by block by block by block by block. This block is called A block, that block is called this, that. So right. There is no single person to run anything. Who do you run to? Each block has its own leader.
Right.
And so this is 35 years of concentrating on punishment and prisons, mm-hmm. and not concentrating on schools and trying to build the community up and do good things within the community, trade schools, this, that, just destroyed the neighborhood.
So I had one of my guys that I had on the podcast last week, David Dominguez. He runs a real estate office for Real Estate Chicago, but he runs it in Pilsen. So like a lot of these guys now, like the young guys or my generation, what we try to do now is try to figure out how to maybe help the community in regards to like how we were talking about like economic segregation, where the money stays in the neighborhood. You know what I mean? We open up businesses in the neighborhood, employ people from the neighborhood, show people in the neighborhood that they can own the properties. They don't, they could do all that stuff. Do you think eventually that'll change the neighborhood for the better in regards to where you might now the role model might not be in our neighborhoods might not be a gangbanger, it might not be a drug dealer or someone that's doing making money like that, but someone that's making it legit?
Well, I could tell you this. That is the way to change things. I'm in class right now. I do outreach. I work a swap on 63rd. As a matter of fact, I got a card. I'm going to give it to you. I told them today, we had a discussion in class, and these are good people. Metropolitan Family Services. My teacher is Ms. Vanessa. And they try to do their best. The thing is, me talking to someone is just not going to be the solution to the problem. Once I walk away, that person still has the same problems.
Right.
You know what I mean? You still have the same problems. So it's going to take a lot of investing by those who invested into wars and invested into prisons and invested into punishment to take some of that effort and put it into trying to fix the solution, not throwing, like I told him, the thing is like a bonfire now. It's like a bonfire. Mm-hmm. You don't walk up and spit on a bonfire to turn it off. And that's what they're basically trying to do with just, go out here and talk to these guys. You have to come a little more correct than that. You spend $6 trillion on war.
Right.
You want to give a couple of $1 million to the city of Chicago to go out and talk to kids?
Right.
It's not logical.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It has substance if you have something behind it of substance.
Right.
Meaning, look, man, we're going to get you a trade. Come on. Build trade schools. Show them that there's something at the end of the tunnel and follow through. Not just, not lip service.
Right.
Hey, man, listen, man, you got to stay off the streets. Look what it did to me. You don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
Okay, when we're done talking, he still has to eat.
Right.
He still has to go home to his mom. We cry about welfare and this and that they're getting $600, $700 a month. A politician makes $174,000 a year for 6 months worth of work.
Right.
They're getting paid right now.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not, unless you get unemployment. Some of the people that have been laid off already for a month and a half, their unemployment hasn't even kicked in.
Yeah.
But the politicians are getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a whole change in the system. Stop blaming the poor people. And we fall for it. Even as middle class people, we start talking, I can't stand somebody who's middle class, if there is such a thing as middle class nowadays, to talk about some poor mom who gets welfare. That's not your problem, man. That is not your problem. Her getting $700 a month, getting extra $50 a month because of the hand she was dealt.
Right.
Cry about those people. How does someone running for the presidency of the United States spend $500 million for a job that pays $400,000?
Yeah.
How does a sheriff spend $8 million on campaign for a job that pays $50,000 a year? What's the catch here?
Right.
But we sit and blame all these people. And then second, and then most importantly, those poor people that are getting welfare money because of the hand they've been dealt does not come out of a politician's pocket. It comes out of your pocket and my pocket. I don't have a problem with them eating.
Right.
I don't have a problem with them eating. Why is every little problem? We might as well blame that they were the ones who murdered Abraham Lincoln. Mm-hmm. Because we blame everything else on them.
Right.
Because we've been indoctrinated to talk like that, to feel like that. It's nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. It's nonsense. It's time to start investing in the people in this country. We give Israel $3.5 billion a year. It's already now, from the day they were born to now, is $200 and something billion. $200 billion.
Yeah.
Imagine what we could do for this country. $6 trillion for war. We could have paid every mortgage in this country. War, what was it? Based on lies.
Right.
And nobody says nothing. Nobody says nothing. Millions of people die. Nobody gets to pay for nothing, but let you go steal something. Or you sold some drugs, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
The hypocrisy, the silliness of this whole thing, and people, and the more they go, they try not to. They don't want nobody to be educated in this kind of stuff. They don't want you to say nothing. They want to throw you peanuts, and they want you to do miracle work.
Mm-hmm.
You ruined this. This is the greatest country in the world. You're making it almost into a third world country, not the ordinary people. You did it because you neglected a certain segment of society, and all they do is there's bloodsuckers lobbying in Washington D.C. And I hate to get political. Lobbying in Washington D.C. Yeah. What is lobbying? It's bribery.
Right.
If me and you went to a city councilman and said, "Hey man, once you pass this bill, here's a $5,000, we'd be in jail for bribery." But lobbyists is legal way to bribe congressmen and senators to do their bidding for big pharma and whoever else.
Yeah.
Whoever else. I had a discussion with someone. He was talking about, send the Mexicans back home and this and that. And I said, you know what? I said, bro, you know what? You eat healthy. This was in prison. It was a white guy. I said, man, you eat healthy, bro. Oh yeah. What do you? I said, you like that apple? Of course I. What kind of question is that? I said, well, you go send those people back to Mexico. You have to pay $20 for that apple. Mm-hmm. You should be thanking those people because they do a job that none of your people will do.
Yeah.
None of your people will do. And it goes on to the other stuff. The same guy was talking about a black kid acting like an animal. This was in Milan, Michigan. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to disagree with you that he's not, because he was acting retarded. He was acting like an animal, if you want to call it. Yeah. I said, you don't like the way he is? And he said, no. I said, well, your people did that. That's your creation.
Yeah.
You created that monster. Don't complain about it.
Yeah.
You created it through oppression, abuse, and neglect. You created that. And I'm not saying you personally, right, but your society did. Because what we fail to realize is we blame all white people for slavery in this country. A lot of these white people only came to this country in the last 100 years.
Yeah.
They haven't been here that long. They're foreigners too.
Right.
They just like to pretend they're not, but they are foreigners just like the rest of us. I know their grandmothers don't speak English.
Yeah.
They speak Lithuanian, Polish, and German, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
But because they're white, we label, oh yeah, this is my country. I've been here. You ain't been here. You ain't been here. So we give them too much credit. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of white friends that I love and good people, good, decent people. And I deal with everybody.
Right.
With everybody. I deal with everybody. I deal with everybody on an individual basis, man. And I know some crappy Palestinians, and I know some good Palestinians, and I know some crappy Mexicans, and I know some awesome Mexicans. Whether it be Chicanos or Paisas, it don't matter, either or.
Right.
And I know some good, loving black dudes, man. Good brothers, man. Good. And I know some crappy ones.
Yeah.
Hell, sometimes I'm crappy myself.
Yeah, I think we're all guilty of that.
Yeah, but
one more question, Ro.
Sure.
So what advice would you, sitting here today, give your younger self?
Oh man,
12 years old, just come to America.
Well, I wouldn't. I really couldn't do much about the racism. I'd still have to fight, but I would. How I would love to bring time back to just do good in school and finish my high school. How I would love to, at least, I know I can't change other people because I've said some things and it was thrown to the wind and somebody wound up dead anyways. But I would definitely not do a lot of the things that I did and easy roll. We basically got tricked into things. You watch Scarface and you watch all these things and oh yeah, we could do it. We don't realize that Scarface was killed at the end.
Yeah.
You know? So it's the lifestyle we lived is, the easiest way to say is like Jimmy Dean, live fast, die young.
Yeah.
I lost a lot of my life, a lot of my friends. I lost a lot of my freedom. A lot of my friends lost their lives. I missed a lot of things. My mom missed a lot of things with me. She's gone. May she rest in peace. I would take my time and just enjoy every single day at every single age and not rush it. Man, I can't wait to be 21. Forget that nonsense. If you're 16, say, I wish I could stay 16.
Yeah.
And if you got somebody, one thing, man, the road to hell and to paradise, there's only a thin line between it. You make your choices and you make them right. Drugs are out of the question. Drugs are out of the question. Alcohol can be a drug too, but drugs are, when you're talking heroin, cocaine, stuff like that, is out of the question. It's not even something that I could, it's like, man, let me try to jump or something like that or fall. That's not something you play with.
Yeah.
So I would say slow down, take a deep breath, look around, and don't think everyone who calls themselves your friend is your friend. Stick close to family, make that family bond strong. And no matter what your family has, if they have $1 or $1 million, be happy with that. If you don't like that it's only $1, well, go educate yourself, stick in school, find people, network, use your head. They have plenty of prison space for you. They'll never run out of prison space.
Yeah.
They'll never run out of prison space. Take your time, breathe, think about what you want to do, think about positive things in life. You can live. The amount of people who live to be 60 is much more than people who just die.
Right.
Because some of us, I've seen about a study where most guys, they question guys, Hispanic or African Americans, and they said, oh, I won't live to be 20. And they were showing a study where it was only a small segment that die at 20.
Yeah.
I said, oh, you mean I could live? Yeah, you could have a chance of living. You got to get people to see that, especially these young people in these areas. And some of these guys, I could see why they would think that. So that's what I would have. Just it could be a long, drawn out thing, but
right.
Just think about it. Stay away from certain things. You know what's right from wrong. That may feel good for a second, but that feeling of goodness for a second can cost you a lifetime of heartache.
Right. And then I want to pick your brain on one more thing. But yeah, like we ran long already. So I remember you were telling right now your story about the guy that got caught and that told on you that was doing cocaine.
Yeah.
And like back then, it wasn't really heard of. It was a frowned upon.
Yeah, you had to hide it.
So, do you think that changed a lot of stuff too, where drug use before was frowned upon, and now maybe that's another thing that really changed a lot of neighborhoods or maybe crime in general?
Why was it frowned upon? It was frowned upon because people in the neighborhood that were solid constantly talked bad about it. How that, dope, fiend, crack. I mean, it wasn't crack then; it was just powder. Nobody was smoking. This was early. That stuff is bad. It was frowned upon because it was taught in the neighborhood by older guys. When they wiped out them older guys, they just left it wide open for anybody to do whatever they want, just like they're doing everything else.
Yeah,
you understand what I'm saying? And that's the thing. We have to go back into the community and start at the bottom. Frederick Douglass said, "It is easier to build a strong man from a child than to try to repair a man when he's broken."
With that one, I think we should. That's a good thing.
Okay.
Thank you for your time, bro.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you having me.
I can't wait to read the book now.
Okay. Well, you got one there. Read it and then let me know, please.
Oh no, for sure.
Yeah.